What is up, everybody? My name is BobaTalks and welcome back to a brand new Gotham Season 4 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing and breaking down basically all the information for Episode 1 that has recently come out. So a lot of promo photos have come out for Episode 1, titled Pax Penguina, and also the synopsis for Episode 1 and 2 have been released, so we're going to go over that as well. So guys, if you do go on to enjoy this video, and only if you do, please hit that like button as it really does show your support for the channel. So going straight into the synopsis for Episode 1 titled Pax Penguina, Gordon fears Jonathan Crane is still alive and back in Gotham when the Scarecrow's signature MO is used in a series of robberies. Meanwhile, Penguin's licensing of crime in the city backfires during the grand opening of his new Iceberg Lounge. Also, in the aftermath of his encounter with Ra's al Ghul, Bruce begins his vigilante watch in the all-new Pax Penguina season premiere episode of Gotham, airing Thursday, September the 21st. Now, the first thing I want to say about Episode 1 synopsis is why it says Gordon fears Jonathan Crane is still alive and back in Gotham. Now, I don't get why they're saying Gordon fears Jonathan Crane is still alive when Gordon full well knew that Jonathan Crane was alive in Season 1 where he left him off previously. I mean, maybe he thought with that massive dose of early fear toxin basically his father injected his son Jonathan with, he might not survive that, he might die of shock or something like that. But either way, I feel like that's a bit iffy to put in the synopsis, because I feel like it was very much kind of apparent that he was alive, but he's just going to be a bit, well, hella crazy because of all that fear that he was injected with in Season 1, and that's what gave him basically the beginnings of the Scarecrow persona. Because if you remember, the last time we saw Jonathan Crane in Season 1, we saw that Scarecrow basically climbing on top of the bed and scaring the living crap out of Jonathan Crane, and then in the years in between then, you can only assume how he, has basically taken on that identity, and I guess we'll find out very early on this season, which I'll get to in a minute. Now, another interesting thing to note out of Episode 1 synopsis is how, where it says, when the Scarecrow's signature MO is used in a series of robberies. I'm saying this now because when we go over the photos a little bit later in this video, we see a few robberies going down, or a couple of things that I think point to this part of the synopsis with the whole Scarecrow robberies that are going down in Gotham City. Now, in the next synopsis, which is for Episode 2, which will air on September the 28th, goes as follows. Under pressure to prove that the GCPD is still powerful, Gordon attempts to bring in Jonathan Crane. However, Gordon puts himself in a dangerous situation at Arkham when he is forced to fight off lunatics and the demon within himself. Meanwhile, with Barbara's unexpected return, Selina and Tabitha must consider risks that come with joining her in the weapon business in the all-new The Fear Reaper episode of Gotham. Now, in the beginning of this synopsis for Episode 2, where it says, under pressure to prove the GCPD is still powerful, this is because, as we saw in the latest trailers for Gotham Season 4, we see that Penguin goes to the GCPD, basically, with a bunch of reporters, more or less humiliating them, saying how they cannot protect Gotham anymore because of the crime rate. So I'm really looking forward to see that unfold, but it makes sense why Jim is really trying to get out there and capture the Scarecrow in Episode 2. And not to mention as well, they have said, well, John Stevens has said, how Episode 2 really is going to be the horror episode for Scarecrow. Like, Episode 2 is going to be insanely featured around the Scarecrow. It's going to be very freaky, and it's going to be quite horror themed. So in the trailer where you see Jim patrolling the halls of Arkham, and then you see that warden guy go crazy on him, and many of you guys did point that out in my recent trailer breakdown, how we saw that the Scarecrow was going towards the warden, and how I missed this, how the warden is actually the one as well who's the crazy one going after Jim. And that's probably because he scared the living crap out of the warden and most likely gave him a dose of fear toxin. But where the synopsis also states how Gordon puts himself in a dangerous situation at Arkham when he is forced to fight off the lunatics and the demon within himself, I think it would be really cool with the reference to the demon within himself if he gets a dose of fear toxin as well, and that demon within himself is him battling out his own fears. I really hope we get that. But let me know what you are most looking forward to from the synopsis of each episode that I've read out. Now, Spoiler TV managed to get a bunch of promo pictures for episode 1, so I'm going to go and break those down now. I'll leave the link in the description to Spoiler TV and where these images are hosted, so be sure to check those out. So in the first couple of images, we can see how Jim walks in on this robbery in this bar. Now, this takes me back to the synopsis of episode 1, where it says, when the Scarecrow's signature MO is used in a series of robberies. I do believe that this is one of the robberies that is taking place. Even though we cannot see the signature in this photo, it's quite likely that these henchmen, if you will, or thugs, are instruments of Scarecrow's plan to spread fear throughout the city. And we can actually see from the trailer as well, Gordon actually managed to get the upper hand on this guy and slam him into the bars. But also, kind of related to this, we see Jim and Harvey walking down this corridor, looking about like they're about to bust open this door into this flat. And I believe that this next photo continues from that moment. But the interesting thing to note here is that we've got this guy holding Harvey and Jim, well, two guys, by gunpoint. But the interesting thing to note most of all is that if you look at the bottom right corner, we can sort of see a gas mask or some gas propeller, and I think that this kind of relates to the image of those three thugs in the gas mask that we speculated on quite a while back now, and how they are probably releasing fear gas out into the city. Now, I do not think that this is a coincidence, as we can see sort of a gas chamber here. It's basically the same equipment as the same photo Danny Cannon released a little while back. So in conclusion here, I think that Jim and Harvey are getting closer and closer to finding all these people who are going throughout the city and spreading fear, and even maybe fear gas through this equipment they have got with the gas mask and the gas canisters. Now, in the next few images, we can see Penguin with a bunch of reporters, and even Jim having a conversation with Penguin. Now, what Penguin is doing here, he's talking to all of the press, and he's basically trying to license crime, as they even said in the synopsis. He's trying to make crime almost okay, and you know, in a way you're able to get away with it. Not to mention, this probably goes along with the opening of his Iceberg Lounge and then his feature prize there, Riddler in the ice. But we can't forget how we read earlier in the episode 1 synopsis how Penguin's licensing of crime in the city backfires during the grand opening of his new Iceberg Lounge. And I believe that this is because Jim walks in and he's just like, you know, I'm not gonna let you do this, I'm not gonna let you take this city all the way down with you. What you're doing is not okay, and he's going to try and stop him. And we also know one way of him achieving that is that he's going to team up with Don Falcone's daughter, Sophia Falcone. Now, in this photo, we see Ivy looking at Riddler frozen in ice. Now, I'm not sure if this is pointing to the fact that there's this big theory going on at the minute, and you may have heard it, and how Ivy might be the one to turn the power off that keeps Riddler frozen in ice, so it might melt and he might be able to escape. And well, he will escape, but that might be the reason why he escapes. Either way, just looking at this photo, she does have a very sinister look. Initially, you could just argue that she's looking at him this way because she's proud that he's frozen, and she's kind of proud that she's working with Penguin, and she's just looking at Riddler like, well, look at what you've become. But at the same time, this could be very well, even though she's not in the same clothes here as in the trailer where she's pulling down the switch, it could be her planning and looking at him that she's like, right, I'm gonna unfreeze you and let you loose. But let me know what you think of this photo down in the comments. However, in the next few photos, we see that Penguin is dressed up in something a little different, and I believe that this is the opening of the Iceberg Lounge. Yet again, we can see him looking up at Riddler frozen. Now, I do not think that he's witnessing him here with it melted or anything like that. I feel like he's just looking up at his once old friend, maybe reminiscing, maybe temporarily even feeling bad. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still a very emotional thing for Penguin because they were best friends. He was actually even in love with him. So I think this isn't him, even though it's kind of like a meaningful stare. I feel like it's not him looking at Riddler being escaped or anything like that. He's just looking at Riddler being frozen. Not necessarily in awe, but just kind of a sign of how far he has come now. Now, the next photo is one of my favorite photos out of all the promo pictures that are out for episode 1 of season 4. And we see that Bruce is talking to Penguin. And we've seen stuff like this happen before, but with recent stuff that Danny Cannon has said about Bruce, and I'll read that out now. How season 4 and how Jim Gordon, Penguin, and other established characters react to Bruce Wayne's coming of age. Somebody who until now has been seen seen as a wealthy child is now seen as the emerging threat he is. And I actually really love what Danny Cannon said there about Bruce, because just looking at this picture after hearing that from Danny Cannon, it's more like Oswald and other characters are going to start to see Bruce as like, oh crap, like he's not just some wealthy kid anymore, he's getting older. And even though they're not thinking of him in a Batman way, nor will they ever know that he's necessarily Batman, they're thinking of, and how a lot of the time in the comics, that Bruce himself is also very much so against crime, and he's actually a threat to people like Penguin and other villains like that, even as Bruce Wayne. And they fully know Bruce Wayne in the comics as well, Batman aside, is very much so a problem that they need to deal with. So I love how Bruce is making himself known in an event like this with the opening of the Iceberg Lounge, and I really hope that this conversation that he's having it with Penguin is borderline heated, because as Danny Cannon said, he's becoming much more of an emerging threat, and other people like Penguin and even Jim, amongst other villains, are probably going to start realizing that in this season. Now, this isn't the only thing that happens with the Iceberg Lounge opening. We also get the Bruce and Selina reunion. Now, this is all happening in episode 1, so I'm pretty confident that this is the first time that they are seeing each other. And we've also seen behind the scenes photos of this before. We saw Selina, or Cameron should I say, walking up and down the roof, but I think they're doing that here in these promo photos because Selina's like wearing high heels, and who the heck climbs or walks along the side of a roof like that unless you're Catwoman. And we even see Bruce gets up there, and that's no surprise because he's goddamn Bruce Wayne. I think amongst the conversation they're having, it could probably be, it's probably going to be not necessarily hostile. They're probably going to try and initially patch things up or just discuss things, and they're both going so far in their own directions. It's going to be interesting to see if any of that gets disclosed between each other. But then we see Alfred come up as well, and it's probably going to be funny to see what he says about Bruce and Selina interacting with each other again, especially as Alfred really isn't that fond of Selina Kyle. So guys, that is all the promo photos for episode 1. Let me know what you thought of them in the comment section down below. I think it's going to be a really cool episode. We have the opening of the Iceberg Lounge. We have Penguin trying to basically defame the GCPD and trying to expose them for not being able to fight crime. So it's going to be more in Penguin's hands, but we do not want that because that will lead the city of Gotham into a much worse state, especially with him trying to license crime. We have all these robberies going on around the city with the Scarecrow signature MO being present at each one of the robberies. Bruce Wayne, not only as a vigilante but as a person himself, as Bruce Wayne is going to be a much more emerging threat to people like Penguin and even to Jim and other people. And Danny Cannon even recently mentioned, amongst the other things I've talked about in today's video, and how there's going to be a battle of the mentors between Alfred and Ra's al Ghul. He said, an almost immoral figure from such a dark and ancient past coming into Bruce's life when he is so susceptible to influence gives us a lot of drama. Now, the last we saw of Bruce and Ra's al Ghul, Bruce was saying to Ra's, saying, you know, you don't control me anymore. He was in fact shouting and screaming that. So it's going to be kind of hard to imagine as to why Bruce is even going to listen to Ra's, but you know, at the same time, we all know that's going to happen anyway. But it's going to be interesting to see why Bruce is even going to even give Ra's another chance. I don't think it's going to be as simple as that, but Ra's is a very charismatic, powerful, intimidating figure who's very interested in Bruce. So I think he's gonna somehow seduce Bruce into a way of thinking that, you know, maybe I can listen to this guy, maybe I can learn a thing or two, and Alfred is not going to be okay with that at all. And it's kind of sad to even think about that anyway, like Bruce not going to Alfred as much because of Ra's, and then Alfred kind of being left out alone there. So I know, we all know that's not going to last for long, but we also do know that Ra's al Ghul has always, and always probably will be, a very pivotal point of Bruce turning into Batman. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about episode 1 and everything we have learned with the promo pictures to all the information in the comment section down below, as I love to hear all your thoughts. Now, guys, if you have made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it if you left a like on it, if you did enjoy it, and maybe even consider subscribing if you're brand new to this channel for more Gotham Season 4 content just like this. Now, if you want to make sure you never miss out on a single Gotham video, be sure to turn the notifications on by clicking that bell button, which will enable you to get a notification every time I upload to this channel. If you want to stay a bit more up to date with me personally, you can do so by following me on any of my social medias. The links should be popping up on the screen, or you can follow me on any of the links in the description below. But apart from that, everybody, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.